Hello, this is Dr. Keith Henry, the vegan naturopath. Good to be back with you. I took a few days off and we're jumping right back into it today. This is the next episode of the Quick Wellness News Nugget, and we're going to start off with an article from Dr. McCullough. We had a couple of articles from him, and this is entitled Top Vitamin and Mineral Deficiencies Are You at Risk? Article from November 16th, 2016, this week. And even though I don't agree with everything that Dr. Marcola says in terms of eating flesh, and of course he believes that it's okay to eat flesh. Of course, I'm a vegan naturopath and do not agree with that element, but that's not to say that he does not have a lot of good information. He's very accurate on many other things. And here he's talking about some of the top vitamin and mineral deficiencies. And basically he starts off by talking about how eating a balanced whole food diet such as described in his nutrition plan is a foundational requirement for optimal nutrition. And that is true. You must eat. If you want to have optimal health, you must have optimal nutrition, and that includes eating a balanced, well-rounded diet. He goes on to point out how, unfortunately, if you do eat well, how and where your food was grown can also influence your nutritional intake. The soil quality, for example, he says, can significantly influence the levels of certain nutrients in your food, even if you eat organic. Also, he points out how your age, certain health conditions, i.e. digestive issues and others, can also impact your body's ability to absorb and metabolize nutrients, potentially raising your risk for deficiencies, as can diets that restrict certain foods. And he points out such as vegan diets. And of course, my position is that, like with anything else, if you eat a vegan diet, if you eat a well-rounded, well-balanced vegan diet, you can get more than enough nutrients. Of course, he might not totally agree with that. That's fine. We can agree to disagree. He says below, he says, I will review some of the most common vitamin and mineral deficiencies and how to address them. And again, I won't go into all of the detail. You can go and read this article at marcola.com. But we just hit a few of the top points since this is a quick wellness news nugget. He points out how studies from both the US and the UK suggest that majority of people fail to get certain key vitamins and minerals from food alone. He points out at the top of the list are vitamins D, vitamins E, vitamins A, vitamin C, and the minerals magnesium and calcium. He says, however, in my experience, the following nutrient deficiencies tend to have the most important impact on your health. And he points out vitamin D in the food sources. He points out oily fish and mushrooms. Magnesium, he goes on talking about cashews, Brazil nuts, etc. Vitamin C. He talks about animal-based omega-3. I would say I would suggest that you eat non-animal-based omega-3s, vitamin K2, potassium. He goes on to talk about how basically those are the main ones that the 6 major most common vitamin and mineral deficiencies that which are concentrated on in this particular article. Scroll down here. He goes on to point out how nutrient deficiencies are common even among those taking supplements in many cases. And he goes on in this article to point out if you eat a well-balanced diet, you can get most of the foods most of the nutrients that you need. But of course, there are, as pointed out earlier in the article, there are foods that have been, because of the soil that they are grown in and the way that they're grown, they've been stripped of many of their nutrients. This is why I say if you eat a well-balanced diet, overall diet, you're going to more than likely get of different types of foods. You're going to more likely get all of the nutrients that you need, and in some cases it may be necessary to take some supplements. He goes on to talk about vitamin D, very, very important. Also, the importance of magnesium. He points out how it's important in your body's detoxification process, in preventing headaches, and managing cardiovascular health. He also says that reducing insulin resistance and metabolic syndrome if you're at high risk. He says that the mechanism by which magnesium controls glucose and insulin homeostasis appears to involve 2 genes responsible for magnesium homeostasis. Magnesium is also required to activate your tyrosine kinase, an enzyme that functions as an on or off switch in many cellular functions and is required for the proper function of your insulin receptors. He goes on talking about the importance of potassium and sodium. Again, these two work together. They work in tandem. And he lists some of the foods that are very important for both these. He says the best way to balance your sodium and potassium ratio is to increase your intake of foods rich in potassium while maintaining a moderate amount of sodium intake. Whole foods naturally high in potassium and low in sodium include white beans, broccoli, blackberries. You will notice that these are plant-based foods, with the exception maybe of bee pollen, which I don't really consider that as flesh. But I know some vegans say that anything, even honey, shouldn't be eaten. But nevertheless, in terms of pure foods he has listed here, you would notice in terms of the amounts of potassium and sodium, they will be all essentially vegan foods, what we would call plant-based or vegan foods. He talks about vitamin E for brain health, vitamin A and D, how they work in tandem. Again, this is a very detailed article. Because this is a quick wellness news nugget, I'm not going to try to go into the detail, but it's very interesting. I suggest highly that you read it. And if you're a vegan, just ignore the parts about eating flesh parts. This has been Dr. Keith, the Vegan Naturopath. Thank you for listening. Until next time, take care.